Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the FreeBeeCee News. Bleached, boiled and satanised. Oh, I'm sorry, that should read sanitised. Firstly, we'd like to apologise for the lack of satire in this week's news headlines. I mean, let's face it, how can anything get more ridiculous than a world leader who takes the piss out of himself? But here at the FreeBeeCee, we can now reveal what President Trump was really holding in that photo shoot. And here in Britain, the Prime Minister's chief advisor, Hominid Dummings, has seemingly disappeared. He's not been seen in public since he gave his Oscar-winning press conference performance last week. So we asked members of the public where they thought he might be.
Well, probably on a beach in the Bahamas, being massaged by two gorgeous, ripped men.
Reclining on the bonnet of an E-Type Jaguar, covered in whipped cream.
Standing stark naked in one of the pods of the London Eye and facing directly towards Parliament, yeah.
Well, I do apologise. Those clips were in fact from a sexual fantasy documentary which is screening on our channel later this evening. Still, who knows? Meanwhile, earlier in the week, the government announced that now up to 6 people can meet outdoors providing they maintain social distancing. Unfortunately, the statement from Downing Street failed to say who the 6 people are, but we can assume it's Boris Johnson and his partner Carrie Simons, Hominid Dummings and his wife, and of course the Queen and Prince Philip. Elitist bastards. In other coronavirus news now, and China has introduced a novel social distancing measure designed for the wealthy and elite of that country, as demonstrated here by China's leader Xi Jinping when he met with the leader of the World Health Organization. People should keep at least 3 coffee tables away from each other, or for those in the poorer parts of the country, 3 milk stools. Meanwhile, back in the UK, the government has said face masks will be compulsory for everybody travelling on public transport from June the 15th. They say surgical masks aren't required as they should be preserved for the NHS and that any face covering will do. Now, as mentioned in last week's news, hairdressers are desperate to open again, and for one of our reporters, that just can't come soon enough. We cross live now to our coiffure correspondent in Merseyside, Shaggy Cooper.
Behind me is the salon where I normally go to get my hairstyle, but you can see the problem I've got now. The hair's really gone thick and grown long. In fact, last week a small bird landed in there and tried to make a nest.
So, how have you been coping?
Recently I took things into my own hands. I grabbed a pair of sharp scissors and started to try and cut my own hair. Starting at the back, I found it very difficult. In fact, it was almost impossible. And the only thing I achieved was changing the green colour of my carpet to blood red.
Sounds quite drastic. Did you go to hospital?
I did. I went to my local A&E, and I was shocked when I got there to find so many people were there, similar to me, with hair-related injuries.
Well, the NHS has been worried about cuts for years. I don't think they were expecting this sort, though. But I have to say, actually, Shaggy, your hair's not looking too bad.
Do you know, I think I should point out that before the lockdown began, I was completely bald.
Shaggy Cooper with that snippet. In education, some primary schools reopened this week, with many young children returning to the classroom for the first time in 10 weeks. As North London parents arrived at school gates with their children today, there were many tears, tantrums and meltdowns, as expected. But the Principals Association says that parents should pull themselves together and realise that they just can't park their Range Rovers outside the school gates anymore. And finally, new advice was released today by the Department for Diversity in the English Language. A spokesperson said that to increase diversity in the national vocabulary, certain expressions and sounds are now to be used back to front. For example, people who go skiing this winter will be encouraged to zag-zig down mountains, holiday makers in the summer will be able to wear flop-flips, and their children will be able to play on the saucies in the playground. Clocks will go tock-tick, while those males with groin injuries need only go to their GP and press the bell at reception, which will announce both their arrival and their condition with a dong ding. And that's it from the newsroom tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember, keep 3 coffee tables away from each other, and we'll see you next time. Good night. Did she mean the whipped cream on the car or on her? Oh, both.